Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 11th edition of the BigFooty Bombers podcast for season 2021. I'm your host once again this evening, Bonza34, and we are joined by a very friendly guest of the show who, of course, has said many times that we need to trade Jake Stringer for a fourth-round pick, and that is Dero. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Bonza. I just want to say hi to Scooter, my good friend at Bomber Blitz.
Why are we talking to Scooter from Bomber Blitz?
I hear he's an avid listener, so I just thought I'd do a shout-out.
Ah, rightio. And we are also joined by a first-time guest this evening, Mr Bultitude. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Bonz.
Are you feeling a little bit nervous this evening?
Nah, should be fun.
Well, you should be, because Dero and I don't take any shit, so we're we're definitely hard taskmasters here, aren't we, Dero?
Oh, I didn't realise I was a taskmaster, but I'll take that as a compliment.
So obviously Friday night went very well for us. Now, Dero, I know you were at the game. Mr Bultitude, did you happen to get to Marvel Stadium on Friday night?
No, I did not. I had some plans that night. I was in the city, so it's a bit unfortunate wistfully looking over to Marvel Stadium, but I managed to watch the replay the next day.
I don't know about you, Dero, but I actually thought it was a pretty boring atmosphere at the ground, which sort of summed up the game a little bit. It didn't really seem to have too much, I suppose, tension in the air. There wasn't any fireworks on the field. It just seemed to continue on and roll through and end up with a 10-goal win.
It was the most boring 10-goal win I reckon I've ever seen, Bonds. It was, but still had a good time. I don't know about you, but it was still good to win.
Yeah, look, you're never going to knock back a 10-goal win, but I think you did very well, Mr. Bultitude, to actually manage to watch the whole replay.
Yeah, I thought I'd be faithful to the podcast and get some context before I jump on. And what's even better is that I couldn't make it, so I gave my membership ticket to a Crom mate who went on my behalf, so I feel even extra terrible.
Now, we will start off, and I think we'll start off with a player that I think is probably, I think I've said before, I think he's having a career best season, Dero, and that is Mason Redman. I thought he was sensational on Friday night, and I do know that the boys on ABC gave him the 3 votes and Merritt the 2, and I actually don't think that's too bad of a shout for Mason for his game on Friday night.
I think the umpires will give Merritt 3 votes, and that will be fair enough, but Mason for 2, I'm happy with. Yep, definitely.
Well, it's hard because Merritt, I honestly didn't notice him a great deal. I don't know if you know. I don't know if you feel the same thing having seen the game, Mr. Bultitude. But I didn't think he was all that impactful. I mean, looking at the stats, I was stunned he got so much of the ball.
Yeah. I was surprised. Looked at the numbers as well. Obviously, I had the stats before I watched the game, and so I kind of had that, and I go, yeah, he actually is impacting. But if I wasn't aware and I was watching that live or on the go, I wouldn't have thought he was that prolific. But just you look at the numbers and go, oh, okay.
And obviously his partner in crime, Darcy Parish, experienced a tag for the first time on Friday night. And I actually think he did a relatively good job. He was, fairly quiet by his standards, and he only had the 19 touches. But he did seem to me, being there live, drag his opponent away from the contest a little bit. So I think he actually had maybe 11 up until half time and then didn't really have too much of the ball in that last quarter. I think he got 7 touches in that third and then maybe 1 in the last. Heath Dog's probably slamming his head against his keyboard as he listens to this because I've no doubt got that wrong. But I thought when the game was there to be won, he was still strong and everything that we'd expected of him. But I just think as the sort of the heat went out of the game and we just sort of meandered towards the finish line, that's when he probably wasn't really able to break the tag because he probably didn't feel that urgency or that need to do so.
Isn't it good to have a few players that can bear the load when required? Zach played well, but Merritt was... Zach played well. Merritt was good still. But Parish, he had 19 possessions, I think, at the end of the game, and that's a down game considering he's been getting 40 every week over the last few weeks. So yeah, it's a good problem to have, and you chuck a few more in there like Shield, and we're looking good, mate.
I thought Parish, despite the numbers looking a bit quieter than his last few rounds, he had an impactful game. When he had the ball, he did something good with it. He ended up having 6 tackles, which is, I think, the most in the side for that game, bar Stringer. So he wasn't quiet. He was doing some stuff away from the ball, which was still as impactful. And, 5 clearances, a few inside 50s. So he wasn't quiet, but wasn't as prolific as we kind of think the stats should be, or what we're getting used to now from Darcy Parish this season. But I actually really liked his game. I really enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, look, and it's a little bit frustrating for me because I do have money on him to win the Brownlow, and any game he doesn't get 3 is a real kick in the teeth for that bet. But I am glad you mentioned Stringer, and look, I do give you a little bit of shit, Dero, but I will just ask what you thought of his game on Friday night, because, yeah, he did lead the team for tackles the same as Darcy. It was 562 metres gained. You know, he had another 20-odd disposals. He kicked a goal. He is just sort of becoming the player that I think we hoped we'd get when we traded those two second-round draft picks, rather, to the Dogs for him.
Man, he's been awesome. He's been fantastic. I'm just worried about what we're going to have to pay him on 5 weeks of good form, you know, at the end of the day, because he's been up and down, he's been injured, and he's put together a few good weeks, but it's a tough one. And he's also 28, 29 years old, isn't he, at the end of the day? So realistically, you know, can we afford to pay him, you know, put him on a 4-year contract and pay him the $800,000 or whatever, you know, has been rumoured that he's going to get?
Well, he's actually only just turned 27. Well, I say just turned, it was a couple of months ago. So you're right, he will be towards the senior end of his career by the time the 4 years, if he rolls around, ends up. But for a bloke who's probably, you know, fairly maligned at times in the supporter group, he has averaged 16 touches and 2 goals a game, and it's statistically his best season for touches he's ever had. Second best for goals compared to 2015, which was, of course, his breakout year. He's laying more tackles now than he ever has before. Clearances are obviously up because he's spending more time in the midfield. Contested possessions is obviously up again, but that's a byproduct of the fact that he's managed to play more in the midfield this year. I do agree with you, though. I think $800,000 is a bridge too far for Essendon with our list profile. But if I was the club, I would be offering him potentially 3 with fairly easy triggers for a 4th. You know, so we go, okay, look, if you play 18 games in your 3rd year, you'll get a 4th because it shows that he's able to run out the season. I think your concerns about his body potentially breaking down are valid, and that's why I think I'd be putting a games target down for his 4th season if that was the contract that we put in front of him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Bonds. I think 3 years with a chance to extend for 4 is good for him. I think I'm right. He's the only guy on the side with kids, so you might be thinking he wants to safeguard that. And I know someone said in the board at some point, you know, I don't think he got quite as much as he could have gotten in his younger years. Kind of messed that up. So he's probably trying to make up for lost ground there. But another thing about Stringer I found interesting from what I watched and just looking at the stats, I reckon that was his most midfield-heavy game he's played for us. He had the equal high inside 50s for the side. I'm pretty sure he had the most clearances as well. So that was a weird thing I saw from Jake. 23 disposals as well. So he's getting involved in the midfield, and I reckon that was one of the bigger games I saw from him in the midfield, as well as being dangerous up forward.
The other component to Friday night's win was their defence again. Now, the defence, obviously Adelaide were missing Tex Walker, and as it turns out, their secondary targets aren't much chop at the moment. But that was definitely a game, I think, Dero, where we would have expected our defenders to get on top of their opponents, and that's always been a risk for Essendon in the past. We've had games in the past where we expect our players to do certain things, and it's fallen apart. I mean, I think if you go back to the James Hird era, where we were undefeated, and Melbourne hadn't won a game, and Melbourne rolled us in one of the worst games I've ever seen the Essendon Football Club play. So for me, it was very pleasing to see our defenders probably dominate a forward line that we expected them to do in such a commanding way that they did on Friday night.
Absolutely. I think the defence is one area that I've felt reasonably confident in over not just this year, I think for a few years now. We've got a few reasonably good players out, so we seem to have a bit of depth there. But it's interesting, though. Like, I don't think the defence is our concern. I think we really need to be concerned with our forwards.
Yeah, you're 100% right. The forward line is the concern. And I think one incident for me for the forwards, Mr Bultitude on Friday night really summed up, I think, where our forward line is at the moment. And that was Langford picked the ball up on the wing and he kicked Hooker in a one-on-one. Now, he actually kicked it to Hooker's side of the contest, but also put it a little bit over his head. So all Hooker had to really do was just basically push off his opponent, turn around, run back and take the easy mark. But Kale, being the fact that he's now 32 years old, I say 32, or somebody will no doubt fact check that for me. He just didn't have the legs to do it. So it was a great kick from Kyle. And if it had been any other forward in the league in their prime, and even, Kale 2 years ago. It would have been the easiest of marks, but because Kale can't turn as much, it ended up being a scrub kick to space, which I think Adelaide then rebounded out relatively easily, which it's a big concern, despite the fact that we are one of the highest scoring teams, our forward line moving forward, because Kale is clearly at the end of his career, and I don't think anybody can argue otherwise. Where do you think the improvement's going to be for the rest of the year? Is Kale going to continue getting his 1 or 2 goals, for the last 7 rounds, or is somebody else going to step up and fill the void?
It's a really tough question. Very touchy on the subject of Kale. I'm a big Chook fan, so it's been hard to see this decline, and I'm in a state of denial as much as I can. Absolutely,
100%.
Yeah, so I get a bit frustrated when I see. I don't deny the facts, and I'm not trying to defend him, but the talk over the threads about his declining skills, it's just hard to read because I just love him too much. But I remember that. I think I recall that pass that you're talking about, and usually that would be his bread and butter. You kind of trust his jukes more than anything in his game, and he seems to have lost that in the last few rounds, which I'm not sure why. My initial thought was maybe because he's drawing usually the strongest defenders, and he still is, so that might have nullified him a bit, but it's too much of a drop. But I did like the first goal he kicked. He positioned himself at the back of the pack and picked up the ball there. And something that we don't do very often in the forward line. We kind of are all at the front, and usually oppositions usually clean up at the back, and away they go, and the ball goes out about 50. So that was kind of nice to watch. But I don't know where the answer's going to come from in our forward line if it's not Kale. Peter Wright's been pretty good. I'd like to probably see him step up a bit. Jones is slowly building himself. But I think if that's what we've got to work with, I think it needs to be a better disciplined forward line who can set themselves up well. I think there's a screenshot in the thread of the post game where you've got Wright and Hooker in the goal square together. They should be apart. They should be trying to draw defenders away instead of creating these packs that we always want to bomb long to. So maybe some discipline in the forward line might help, because I don't know who's going to step up.
It is a tough topic to talk about, because I don't think there's an Essendon fan alive that doesn't love Cale Hooker. And Dero, I think you did sum it up perfectly on the board. I think it was about this time last week when I'm sort of paraphrasing you, but you did say that he's still taking that main defender, and for as long as he does that, he's still useful to the side. It just depends on, is he going to be able to bring the ball to ground? Because if he's taking the number one defender and the number one defender's running off him, then it's no point having him out there. There really isn't. If he's going to have the Stephen Mays and the Harris Andrews and all these other defenders just run off him and intercept mark, the argument that he still takes the number one defender doesn't hold any weight anymore.
No, I agree completely with what you just said, Bonce. He's just not clunking them at the moment. It sort of gets to the point where he becomes a liability when you've got players like May, who unfortunately made him look pretty average. But when he was kicking 2 or 3 goals a game, he was more than breaking even. But at the moment, he's not. So I think maybe, unfortunately, we're getting closer to the time where we may have to look at another option. And I think someone in the thread today suggested Wright maybe. And I don't think I would have agreed with that 1 or 2 weeks ago. But at the moment, I'm thinking, well, maybe we might be better off with Hooker out and Wright in there, playing that key role, and having another player maybe running around at his feet. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I think for me the obvious selection move is if we were to move Hooker out of the side, would be to bring Brian in to play Wright's current role, and then, or even Draper to play Wright's current role, and Brian take the ruck, and then Wright to where Hooker is. But we won't dwell too long on that, because there is another bloke, Mr Bultitude, who played sensationally on Friday night. Look, I was all for giving him a rest, because I strongly believe that he was out of a bit of touch, and a rest could have helped him. But thank God they didn't rest Archie Perkins, because he kicked 3 goals. He missed 3 as well. He kicked 3-3. Probably could have had, he really should have had 4 or 5. He had 18 touches. His inside 50 work was great. He had 4 inside 50s, 338 metres gained. He had 9 score involvements, and he laid 2 tackles in the forward 50. So his pressure in the forward half was just really, really good on Friday night. And surely come Tuesday morning or Tuesday night, whenever they announce it, he gets the rising star nom this week.
Yeah, look, if he doesn't get it, we riot. The board just goes full bunter. He was awesome. He was the best part of that match. Watching him step up, take the game by the scruff of the neck, and just say to Adelaide, I'm the captain now. This is my game. And yeah, I thought he looked a bit done. All the young guys in our team, I thought looked real cooked the last few rounds. So I was a bit hesitant to see them, or at least all of them, or some of them not rested. But he just surprised everyone. I think even Richo at the end of the game, watching, I think, the 7 commentaries, just gushing over him. And everyone, I think he's going to be the flavour of the month or of the season for AFL is just going to love him as he grows into the player that he's going to be. He plays like a player who's not. He's not in his first year. This is the way a second, third, fourth year player is playing. He's got this strength that he just breaks through tackles. He has this smart one-on-one ability. He seems to be able to read his player really well and break from them and get some distance and link up with other players really well. I just haven't seen that maturity in a first-year player in quite some time. So I'm really surprised. I know he kind of shanks it a bit and rushes a bit with his foot, but apart from that, his game is just so clean and mature. It's just a joy to watch. I don't know what else I can say.
He just seems to have a lot of time and space whenever he gets the ball, really, which Dero is unreal for a first-year player because I think as Mr Bultitude was saying then, he just looks like he belongs. He just looks like he's walked into this level. And while we're discussing him, I will just also ask you, what did you think of Cox's game? Because 19 disposals. There was a lot of people clamouring for him to be dropped this week, and I was absolutely one of them. I thought, look, we need to give this bloke a rest. But again, he was equally as good as Perkins, just without the scoreboard impact.
Just quickly, I reckon Perkins has got some swag. I like the way he gets his arms free when he's tackled. That's the biggest thing for me. But yeah, getting back to Cox. Yeah, Cox was good, I think, this week. He looked a bit tired last week, but he's bounced back. And I guess that's the thing you probably should expect with young players. They're going to be inconsistent until they find their feet. And that's going to take a few years, generally does, especially with tall guys, I suspect. But, I mean, it's hard, isn't it? I like to judge these guys.
Yeah, it is, because they are so young. And the other thing I liked about Cox on Friday night, and it may potentially get him in trouble as clubs start to put some more work into him around the ground and start to compile a list of notes on what he likes to do, Mr Bultitude. But I did like the fact that he sort of invited the contact. He was happy for a bloke to tackle him. Then he just lifted his big arms up above them and handball it out. Now, a couple of times he frustrated a little bit because it didn't quite come off. But I think someone his size, and look, Channel 7, I don't know if you guys know, but apparently he's 200 centimetres tall. But if we can get him doing that stuff on a regular basis, he's going to be a frightening matchup for anybody across the league. It doesn't matter who.
I'm interested to see how big he gets. Imagine that agility with the strength. Like if he puts on 10 or 15 kilos and has the ability to, like at the moment, he's breaking tackles, but if he gets to the point where he's really breaking tackles, I mean, no one will be able to stop him. It'll be like Jonah Lomu running down, in rugby. Amazing, strength to power ratio. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
I love the Jonah Lomu reference. I was a big fan of his back in the day, and I was devastated when he had to retire as early as he did. Dero, another bloke that I think we've mentioned on this podcast before, I think yourself and Jamu and I had a chat about him last time. That's Will Snelling, and he was very solid again on Friday night. He had his he had his 24 touches, his couple of tackles, his forward work again. I thought was very good. He had the 8 score involvements. I think Jade and I discussed earlier in the year as well that he might be the sort of bottom 16 to 22 player that every premiership side has. And Jade at the time said, if he's going to be that player, then geez, you've got a really good 16 players in front of him. I'll tell you what, that's not a bad call right now because he is one of the form players in our side as we speak.
I reckon Jade made a pretty good call there. Absolutely. What did he have? 23, 24 touches on the weekend. He is a really solid player, and I think you touched on this the last time we spoke. It's the inside work that he does in the forward line, the tackles he lays. So, pretty good player.
Yeah, I'm a big Snelling fan. I love the way he goes about his work and his footy. I've said this on the board before, and I'll say it to most people when I'm talking about him in person, that he's the kind of player that that a Richmond coaching staff absolutely froth over. That role player who does the hard work, wants to be a part of it, is hungry for it. That's the biggest difference between him, I think, and a lot of other players on our side. He has this will to compete and put himself in the game. I think one of the things to his credit was when he was injured, his presence was sorely missed. I feel like as much as the forward line's been a bit haphazard, it fell even further apart when he wasn't around to bring that pressure, bring that work rate up. I'm a big fan of that. So, yeah, I'm a really big Snelling fan. I love his little story. You know, I think he's mid-season draft perfection. I think no other team has nailed it recently like we have with Snelling.
No, he has been a great pickup, especially in the mid-season draft. And look, we will move on from this game, but there is one more player I do want to just quickly touch on. And Dero, he has been much maligned on our board, and that is, of course, Tom Cutler. He probably could easily be considered whipping boy status on the Essendon board at the moment. I thought his game on Friday night was very good. I thought he did exactly what we recruited him to do. He ran, he provided that carry, he provided that big, long, booming kick. His only issue is he does make the occasional error. And for whatever reason it is, whether it be the fact that we're all waiting for him to do it or we're all a little bit more critical of him, his errors just seem to stand out a lot more than any others. But again, I still thought he was very, very good on Friday night.
I think if it doesn't work out for him playing football, I think he's going to do very well off the park. And that's all I really have to say about Cutler.
So we do now obviously turn our attention to this coming Sunday, the 1:10 game against North Melbourne. Now, I think they're still sitting pretty at the bottom of the ladder, and even if they somehow miraculously get the win tomorrow night, they'll still be sitting there below Hawthorn. It's a game we should win. It's a game that we dominated earlier in the year. And look, if I'm honest, Mr Bultitude, I don't really see a lot of difference between North earlier in the year and now. I think I made a joke on the board that we'll talk them up so that if we win, it looks better than it does, and if we lose, we can all say we called it. But really, this is a game that Essendon should not be dropping.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't really seen a big difference between now and when we played them. I'm not sure who is out injury-wise compared to then, or who's in the side compared to then. I haven't really been watching their season, to be honest. I'm probably not alone in that. Yeah, I think we should win this comfortably. I don't see why we wouldn't be, barring any major outs on our side or any impactful injuries during the game. But I feel bad for saying that. I shouldn't feel bad, but yeah, I just don't see how North can get it away around it or change it up. They don't seem to be a bit listless at the moment, which is a bit sad, but not sad, really. So, yeah, I'm with you, Bonds. I don't think we're going to lose this one.
I mean, Dero, you have to look at their side, and their dominating players at the moment appear to be Aaron Hall and Ben Cunnington, who hold absolutely zero fear for me in the midfield, especially against our current midfield and the output they're doing. Then you've got Jack Zeeble, who's seemingly getting bulk touches, kicking the ball out of defence. So he's great for fantasy, but he's not doing a hell of a lot on the field. So, yeah, where do you sit with North? Do you see us losing this one in any way, shape or form? Is there a possibility of an upset?
I've never been one to tempt fate at the end of the day. and honestly, I think if we're ever going to lose one, it's going to be against North Melbourne. But I agree wholeheartedly with what you've said, and there is no fear. I rate Cunnington. I like him as an inside player, but they don't have a lot going on, and unfortunately, they don't have a lot of talent on their list at the moment. But I've said it, so hopefully fate doesn't teach me a lesson.
Yeah, and I was probably being a bit disingenuous there, Mr. Bultitude, by listing those three as their informed players, because obviously they do have Robbie Tarrant as well, but he's no better than say your Stephen May, Jake Lever, Tom Stewart, and we. Well, for all of the Melbourne game, we certainly pushed Melbourne, and for quarter and a half, we pushed Geelong. So I don't think him standing up in this one is really going to make a massive difference, and especially since they're coming off about a 5-day break, and we're having about a 9-day break. It seems to me that it would be inexcusable to lose this game.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. You'd be filthy if that was your team coming off a break like that. I'm glad it's not us for once. I feel like that's something that always seems to happen to us. So it's nice to be on the other side of that. The thing is, during the season, you usually be talking about at least one player from every team that seems to be lighting it up and being consistent. And for North, there's no real player that comes to mind. No one's really stepped up. Again, I haven't been paying too much attention, so I'm happy to be corrected or told otherwise, but no one seems to be rising to the top. Like, you're right, like Cunners doesn't really instill any fear for me either. I kind of hear his name and go, oh yeah, that guy. Apart from that, maybe Zerha is the only player that I feel like plays with any real conviction for the side at the moment. But apart from that, no one's really stepping to the plate and leading by example.
Now, we'll move away from the AFL for a second and move to VFLW. The girls obviously played their second semi-final against the previously undefeated Collingwood on Saturday. Unfortunately, they didn't get the chocolates. They did lose 2-6-18 to 1-5-11. They will, of course, play Geelong this weekend in a preliminary final. I believe it's at 12 o'clock at Windy Hill. It's disappointing to lose Mr Bultitude, but it's still good to see the Bombers in finals. And, of course, they appear to have pushed Collingwood, as I said, who were undefeated, relatively hard on the weekend. And it bodes well for them should they get over Geelong and make it into the grand final.
Yeah, definitely, Bonds. It's really good to see. Unfortunately, you want the win, but to see them go that far into finals and they're still in with a sniff, it's really cool to see. It's something that we're really not used to at the Bombers. So this is really exciting, and I hope it puts some pep in the rest of the club step. But it's also good for us, heading into AFLW over the next year or so, to show that, hey, we mean business in the women's football. We're here to make a mark. We're not here for just the participation award. We want to get the win. So, and I didn't realise that Collingwood were undefeated for the season. So that's really impressive as well, to push it to them, take it to them. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the future for our women's side across the board.
Yeah, and look, I don't know what the process is for selecting these players once the AFLW side does get involved. But our captain in Georgia Nanscowan did have 28 disposals, and she laid 13 tackles, which alongside Presparkas, who laid 12. I mean, 25 tackles with two players is just, it's mind-boggling stuff. I think tackling numbers are a little higher in the VFLW, but it's still an impressive effort. And I think if we were to beat Geelong, I think we could see a fairly strong pro-Essendon crowd, because I feel like our fans like to get out in numbers for these sort of events.
I'm there, mate. Essendon finals. I don't care. I'm up for that. Bring it on.
So does this mean you'll be at Windy Hill on Saturday at 12 o'clock to give us a live commentary of the VFLW preliminary final?
I'll see you at the Windy Hill Social Club, Bonce, and we'll do a live commentary.
I'm not sure I'll make it, but I look forward to your efforts, mate. Now, we will just go back to the AFL now as well. And Dero, I will just ask you a question that's probably starting to get a little bit of traction on the board, and I'm not too sure if we could talk about it yet, but Dero, I'm going to ask you anyway. Can we start talking about the F word? Is the F word something that the Bombers can potentially look towards this year?
Well, you're talking about fate again, aren't you? Oh, it makes me nervous when we start talking about fate. I don't want to say anything that may be linked to fate, but geez, it'd be nice to play finals, and we've got a couple of games that we probably should win, so maybe in a couple of weeks it may come up. So that's it for me. I'm not gonna say anything else on that one, mate.
Can't believe you just said the F word. I can't believe you said it out loud. What's wrong with you? Good news for us was Richmond obviously lost today, which kept us above them. The bad news for us as well is that Fremantle won, which I think was to be expected because Hawthorn are rubbish. St Kilda won, which doesn't help us, and which was a bit of a surprise because of Brisbane. And of course, GWS did get beaten by the Suns, but then Sydney beat the Bulldogs. So, Mr Bultitude, look, we are talking about the F word. We may be doing it a little bit early. Some games went our way. Unfortunately, some didn't. It would be tough from here, but as Dero just said, because I think he just said that we're going to be undefeated for the rest of the year with games that we should win. It is possibly something we can maybe look forward to this year.
I'm all for it. Bring it on. I don't like the talk of, I don't want to make finals because I don't want to get, we don't want to get false hopes up or we're further along than we think we are. And just go for it. See what the side can do. They're running high on confidence and they're loving playing together. Give it a crack. And I think that the higher ups at Bombers have no delusions at where we're at, and will appreciate any sign of mongrel. And this side want to play, and I'm all about it. If we don't make it, that's great. That's fine. Look, we're giving it a really good crack every week. But if we can get a sniff and get some finals footy into some of these younger kids, I think that's just going to benefit us going long term. I don't want to play it safe. I want to see them just rip it apart. And seeing Richmond lose like that, it's pretty inspiring to think, we could take it to these teams. There's no reason why we couldn't beat a team like Richmond, even though they beat us. Mind you, they haven't won since they beat us. So I'm not sure if if we can claim, someone said they can claim that as a moral victory on our board, and I might hop onto that myself. So I think the guys are riding high on confidence and they love them playing together. I haven't enjoyed watching the Bombers like this in almost ever, I think. So wouldn't mind seeing them try and get a finals crack, because it's just really exciting to watch.
Yeah, look, I think unfortunately for Richmond, we were their grand final this year and they gave it everything they had, and they did beat us, but it seems to have taken everything out of them. And look, I do agree with you in that I don't see this whole, I don't want to play finals because we're going to get smashed. You know what? Playing finals is what it's all about. And the thing is, yes, we might get smashed, but what if we don't? What if we win a final or win 2 finals? It gets some confidence into the kids. So look, I'm not quite sure I'm with Dero in that all our games for the rest of the year are winnable and we should win them and therefore make finals, because that's exactly what he just said. But I do think that.
Hang on a second, mate. Is that really what I just said? I don't know about that. But
I think if Beery edits it right, that's exactly what you said. But yeah, no, as you did say, mate, we do have a lot of winnable games coming. So finals, we don't want to say it too loudly because it's still a long shot. But if it happens, it would be great. And I certainly don't subscribe to the theory that we should miss the 8 to keep the hunger alive. But I think that will do us for this evening, lads. Dero, thank you for coming on. You were the last minute call up. You were the hero that we needed, but not the one we wanted. Is that the quote? Have I got that right?
I think that's probably an apt description, and I'm happy with that.
And thank you as well, Mr Bultitude. I hope your first time on here wasn't too painful, and Dero and I didn't go too hard on you.
No, it was an absolute pleasure. Had a blast.
It was a pleasure. We got to. Where did you own a cafe somewhere, Mr Bultitude, or is that your?
I used to work in cafes, yeah. Never owned one. I'm not that stupid.
I thought there was something about you with coffee somewhere. That's where I remember you from. I was wondering. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a coffee roaster at the moment. Yeah, used to do the barista dance for a while, so.
All right, so we'll let these two have their private chat later. So thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, for listening in. If anybody else wants to jump onto the podcast, by all means, let us know. We're always happy to take new guests on, and have a lovely evening. Thank you once again.